Amal, and we'll be learning about her and the imprint that she's leaving on her world. So with that being said, Amal, would you mind telling us a little bit about who you are, where you're from, and some of your general interests?
Hi. Okay, so let's just start by saying my name is Amaal Said, or Amaal Said, whichever way you want to pronounce it. I am a poet. I'm a photographer. I'm dabbling into film. Like, I wouldn't call myself a filmmaker just yet, but I'm experimenting. I'm also a politics student. I'm in my second year at university at the moment. And I just turned 20, if that's even relevant.
Yeah, extremely relevant. Happy birthday.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Yeah, did you speak about where you're from, or where you currently live?
Oh, yeah, no, I didn't. My bad. I am a Danish-born Somali, and I've been living in London for a while now. I feel like, yeah, most of my life I've been in London, so I'm like based here as well. So yeah,
Okay.
I'm a Londoner.
You're in London now?
I'm a Londoner.
Could you dive a little bit into your work and like, don't be modest. Like, let's just tell people what this really is. So like, yeah, speak a little about your work and like how you balanced school and also pursuing a passion of yours. I don't know if you call it a career, but I see it as a career for you. So.
That's interesting that you see it as a career, because even now, even when people ask me, it's like, oh, it's just a hobby. It's just something I do in my spare time, you know? I think that's just another way of not really taking myself seriously as a creative. I don't know if that has to do with what other people have told me kind of about what I can do as like a daughter, as like a Somali girl, as a Muslim girl, you know? But I mean, doing school and then having to balance that out with everything else, it's never really been kind of like a 50-50. I always put school first. And for a long time, it was, okay, so you do politics and then you get like a real like job that has like a steady income, and it doesn't really matter if your heart's not in it. You need like, you know, you need stability. And I've always wanted to give that to my parents, because I'm just someone who just always wants to please their parents, like from very, very early age, just doing and kind of sacrificing my own happiness in terms of, oh, I really want to do this, but no, like my parents won't approve, really, you know? So I mean, if there's an opportunity in terms of photography, but like I really got to do my schoolwork, it's like, back away, I really need to get my grades, you know? Always. So I mean, I've been writing from a very, very early age. So like, I remember when I first came to London, didn't speak a word of like English, and I just needed to, because I was very isolated. Even now, I'm like super isolated. So, because I'm just an introvert like that. Like I'm always in my own bedroom. I'm just like, even, I feel like it's my talent. Like you could have like a house full of, because I come from a big family, you could have a house full of like family members and I could just isolate myself like somehow. Like it's crazy. So from a very early age, I think I was like 11, 12 perhaps, I've always kept a diary, and I was always writing. I always had a blog. I started off on Blogspot. That was very quiet, and then I went on to Tumblr, and then, so I mean, it was like sharing my work. It was about comfort, I guess, sharing my work with a few people and then sharing my work with even more and more people. And I think if you've been on Tumblr and you've shared your writing on Tumblr, there's that idea of the likes as kind of validation of like your work. It's really, really dangerous.
Yeah.
It's really dangerous, you know? And it's like, oh my God, like this is a really great poem because I got like this many likes. So I really had to step back after a while. But I mean, that happened. And then from Tumblr, I just kind of went and I applied for writing programs and things like that. And I actually got into a writing program. And it was incredible. It was super incredible to be validated and to be told. So I did Barbican Young Poets with Jacob Sam-LaRose, who's an incredible, incredible poet and a teacher. And he just cares so much about you as like an artist. And he cares about your vision and your individuality as an artist. And I remember he was the first person to call me a poet. And I went into that classroom just being like, oh, I'm just, I just write a couple poems. Like, I'm not really anything. Like, and being told, no, you are a artist, you are a poet, and you have a future in this. Being told that was incredible. And then having to think about, oh my God, I could have a collection and people could come see me perform. Like, is that even, like, as being like someone who's shy, someone with a lot of anxiety, and then, going from a bedroom and then going onto the writing program and then now like performing for people and for people to kind of come out of themselves and to approach me and to tell me, like what you said on that stage actually made me feel good about myself, or you allowed me now to go home and to like really write about something that I was scared to write about. So I remember I performed at the Unheard Festival, which was curated by Rachel Long, who's an incredible poet and a curator. And it was basically about it was a festival tackling sexual violence and also talking about consent. And I remember being completely frightened to go on the stage. I mean, I knew that the people I was performing with were other kind of female poets who I love and adore. And when I went onto that stage, it was like, oh my God, you know what? Like, you can do this. And I did it. And afterwards, like, the conversations I had with people were incredible. And I mean, like a year before that, I really could not imagine going on that stage and really talking about what it talks about, So, I mean, it's that strength also from other women around me to really be talking about and to really like be out there doing the work, curating, people, bringing people together. Like even now we have a writer's circle for solely women of color, which is incredible. I'm like, whoa, like this exists. So it's called Octavia, and it's just bringing together Black and Asian writers, like women writers. So it's like amazing. I mean, and that's just for poetry. I feel like, oh my God, like it's a whole other thing. Like, do you want me to even get into the photography?
Get into it.
My God, like, yes. I mean, for photography, it's completely different because, I mean, for poetry, I talk about having a community, of poets to support you. I didn't have that for photography. It was very, very lonely in terms of, am I doing it right? Even now, when I put something out and I'm like, yo, I don't think I'm doing this right. Like, I really, truly want somebody. And for poetry, I always had that. I always had people who were older than me, who were doing it for a really long time and critiquing my work, telling me what could be better, telling me how I could reach out to even more people. And for photography, it was kind of every other shoot I was doing, I was learning. So I was really, truly learning on the job.
Why do you think that's so?
I don't know, maybe it's just I was just lucky to fall into the community that I did for poetry. And I don't know what exists in photography in terms of collectives right now, I don't know where you would have to go, whether you'd have to do a course, like a photography course, and then be school learning environment for photography. I don't know if that's what people do. But for me, I mean, I had an Instagram profile. So I made my Instagram like 3 years ago, and I had Instagram. And so when I started photographing, I wouldn't even say professionally, but like when I just started doing it and taking it a little more seriously, there were people on Instagram. I think that kind of became my space for let's just see what floats. Like, let's just see if I post this, will people like it? And like, it just grew. Like, the community on Instagram just grew. And Instagram for me is a scary place because I'm like, whoa, people can say what they want to say.
Yes.
They can cuss you if they want to cuss you. Like, it's a mean place sometimes, But like, I just posted stuff, and people just commented like they really liked certain pictures, and I was like, whoa. And then from there, that gave me the confidence to get onto, or to kind of get a website for the first time. And it took so much strength because I was like, do I really is my work really worth having like a website? Like, will people even check it? Like, and when I did it, it was incredible because the support that came from that, and like the views on the first day, I was like, whoa, that was incredible. That was like huge validation to me. So yeah, I mean, that's it.
Is there any other aspect of your creative work that you like to share that you think that you've kind of overlooked?
Mm, mm, in terms of the photography, or just
In
in terms
terms
of
of
like everything?
everything that you do, yeah. Because I mean, and what I like is that you haven't like restricted yourself or kind of compared your success in one aspect to another and said, well, I'm not going to do that because, you know.
Yeah,
So I just was
right.
wondering.
Because I mean, for me, I don't think of them separately all the time.
Mm.
Not all the time. I think of them sometimes as kind of adding to each other, or when I can put poetry and photography together, and then even filmmaking, when I can put that in a film, like for me, that's just the height. I'm like, whoa, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. There's such a rush that comes from being able to do it like right. And I mean, like me and Anina, shout out to Anina. If you guys don't know who Anina is, she's incredible. Like, she's my sis. Shout out.
Sis.
Yeah, she's my sis. Shout out to her. She's but so I mean, we did a collaboration together of like a little short film thing called Out of Shadow, and it was like a mix of kind of poetry. It was a kind of like a mix of photography because of course before I started filming, I was always thinking about the angles of the photograph, the kind of composition. I mean, like, where can you stand so that I can get the most light on you? Where can you stand so that I can get like a great enough shadow? How can we kind of put that together? And then the film came into, you know, existence, and it was like incredible because I've always been obsessed, like completely obsessed with shadows. And so like I was telling this to Anina actually, like I was on the bus the other day, not the other day actually, a couple of months ago. And I was on the bus and we were going, like the bus was going around a roundabout, and I remember the sun was just coming into the bus in like such an incredible angle that you just saw all the flickers as the bus was kind of turning. You saw all the flickers on the kind of like below the window of the bus. And the guy who was like on the opposite side of me was just looking at me like, what is she looking at? Like, what is, like literally, I just could not stop staring. There's just a particular type of like movement that I look for. And I think this is why I've been so interested in film, because there's so much that you can capture in like a photograph. I mean, there's a lot. I mean, because I just did like a collaboration with a singer-songwriter. She's Ghanaian, Jojo Abbott. And so she also dances, and so she just started dancing, and it was so transcendent. That's I think the only word I can describe it with. Like she was just elsewhere, you know. Like her eyes were closed certain periods. Like, and for me, the fun thing is kind of how can I capture that, you know? But I mean, for a film, and then we also shot like film, and I feel like that always takes it to another level. But yeah, so I feel like the things that kind of just connect all of this, even the poetry, is kind of movement. It's kind of this idea of the light and the dark. So, I mean, it's always really fun for me to see how everything kind of connects together.
You said something that was really interesting while you were speaking. And you said, like, you got a rush and adrenaline, and you're like, this is what I should be doing. And that's interesting because you also spoke about your obligation to kind of have a real job. So how does that weigh out for you? Like, you feel like you have to get this degree, get this real job, but you feel like the work you're doing now is kind of like your destiny, like what you should be doing. So
I feel like it's going to be a super hard conversation. I think I just haven't, I've been too scared to really admit it to myself. I know that this is what I read, and it's like, how do I have that conversation with my parents where I'm like, you know, I don't really think I'm going to go to grad school for what you think I'm going to go to grad school for, you know? I probably want to like develop my craft as like an artist, whatever medium, you know, I kind of gravitate towards when it comes to that period. But it's going to be, for me, it's going to be like a moment of sitting them down and being like, I kind of don't want to do that serious. And to them, like, for me, it's just this idea of what is serious and what is kind of like respectable, because it all ties in with like respectability. And I know for me, it's not just about on an individual level. It's about the collectivity in terms of how will the family look at you. It's about how will the wider community look at you. How will we talk about our daughter to your aunt, to your uncle, how are we going to describe you? Like, it's kind of this neat way of wanting to describe me as Amal, and then a very, very stable job, you know, because how do you tell them, Amal the artist, Amal the photographer, Amal the videographer, Amal the this cinematographer, whatever. How do you how do you say that for them? And I've never really blamed them for that. Like, that's where they come from. That's their comfort, you know? And also, like, wanting to come here to, like, give us a better life, you know? That idea of, we want you to be good because we struggled for a very long time. But for me, like, and I remember when we were shooting this, especially when I was shooting this film with Anina, like, I remember specifically there was this little period where we had to stop filming because I was like in tears, because I was like, oh my god, did you see that? And it was just this moment of, I don't know what she did. I think the light hit her and she just started moving her arms, and I remember just being like, yo, like, I cannot deal with this, and like, I was tearing up, and she saw I was tearing up, and I was like, I'm just feeling it, you know? Yeah. So I'm just a really passionate person, like, when it comes to just anything. I'm just like really in love with the world. Like, I'll just be like walking and I'll just see like a particular tree or something, and I'll just be like, whoa. Or I'll be like sitting next to, like, I don't know, like a pond or something. I remember we were actually sitting next to a pond. It was me and Anina. Shout out to Anina again. We were sitting next to a pond, and I remember there was no fish, but there was like I don't know what you call it, but anyway, there was like these pods in the water, the pond, and I remember we were just like flicking our hands and just kind of like, wow, the world is so beautiful. So I mean, for me, I know that it really, really makes me happy, and I know that it's my way of also dealing with things in the world that don't make me happy, and I'm coming to resolve with certain things that make me kind of anxious or other things. So for my own livelihood, for my own sanity, for my own survival, I know that this is what I want to be doing, you know?
What are some of the major setbacks that you've had in your work?
Right. I think this ties in with my low self-esteem for a while. I mean, I was told at the very beginning. So when I was starting out, when did I start out? I think like 2 years ago. I think 2 years ago, or maybe 1.5 years ago. I have no idea. I lose count. But it's not that long ago. But I was told by somebody that I looked up to at that point as a photographer, that I had like no artistic vision, that I wasn't going to go very far. And I believed it. Like, I internalized so much of that kind of meanness. And for me, I'm someone who can take criticism. I can take it. I welcome it. I'm like, if there's something that you think I could be doing better, tell me, because I'm not interested in, as an artist, being comfortable with where I'm at. I'm always like, there's something that I could be doing better, you know? So when that happened very early on, it was so easy for me to put down the camera and to be like, I don't want to do this anymore because I'm not good enough. Somebody I was looking up to that I respected told me that I'm not good enough. But then I had to realize that kind of, it was just coming out of meanness. It wasn't coming out of anything about love. And I think if criticism comes from a place of kindness, I'm all about it. I am all about it. But no, so for me, it's just how I can kind of keep thriving, even when people don't believe in my work sometimes, or don't kind of see me or respect me as an artist. And I've had to work super hard to even have the title of like artist, because it's not just something that was given to me, you know? It's not. So just respecting myself enough to kind of look at people and say, like, no, I'm gonna beat your vision of me, of how you see me, and I'm just gonna get better. So I'm thankful that I was strong enough in that moment to continue, even if it did take me out for a little while. I was strong enough after that to be like, you don't have to quit, and you can find other people who really kind of look at you and respect what you're doing, and kind of admire what you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, just from me briefly speaking with you, I really appreciate that you seem to have a deep appreciation for the journey and kind of like earning titles, because I remember, I think like a few years ago, everybody that had a cell phone was calling themselves a photographer, and everyone on Instagram calls themselves a model. So I was like, so I just think that's really, it's really beautiful, and it to me it brings some depth to what you're doing. It's not just like, oh, I have a camera, I'm this, or I wrote a poem, I'm this. I mean, and for people can identify as they want to, but I just, for me, outside looking in, I just really appreciate that about you.
Right. But it was hard, because I just wanted to say that, especially, I think, because that's been my problem for a long time. It's this title thing, but also, so when I was becoming a photographer, there were many moments where people outside of myself, like people who were looking at my work, called me a photographer, right? And I was like, nah, like, not really. I don't think so, not yet, because even now with the filmmaking, I'm very, very kind of, I don't know how to say it. I'm not quick to call myself a filmmaker, because I realize that these things, there's so much work that you have to do, because there have been so many people before you who have like added so much depth to it. And I feel like you just have to have a respect for those people that have been doing this. And it doesn't mean that like you cannot be a photographer, that you cannot be a filmmaker. It just means that before you are those things, for me anyway, I just had to have like knowledge, and I had to have respect, and my heart had to be in like the right place, you know, for me to be able to do that. But yeah.
All right. Well, what are some of the major triumphs that you've seen in your short journey thus far?
Don't
be modest. Don't be modest. Spill it.
I mean, okay, so surviving this far, like, I mean, I also, for poetry, I mean, I just won, this is crazy, I just won the Wasafiri New Writing Prize, so that's, like, incredible, it's a huge award, and so it's a weird story, because before, so I had applied to that, and before I got, like, a night before I got the email telling me that I had been shortlisted, I had given up in terms of, I actually stood there and I said to myself, Amal, we are never writing another poem again. I'm done. Like, this is way too hard. Like, I can't do it anymore. And when I got that email, like, I just looked at my phone and I just started crying, because I was like, yo, how... this is a sign, like, and so and when I kind of I completely tried to forget about it, because I was like, there's no way I'm winning this, like, no way, and I went, and there was like a huge like reception, and there's like a night, it's like a poetry night, and there's like an official announcement and everything, and so I'm like sitting at the front row, and I'm like shaking, like, that's how nervous I was, and then when they said my name and I won that, and it wasn't even just winning it. I mean, afterwards, the person who's judging it, his name is Roger Robinson, and he's incredible. He's an incredible poet, and he's a musician as well. So I have so much respect for him as an artist. And afterwards, he told me that, you know, it was choosing between two of your poems, because you submit 5, and then most of the time 1 goes through, but for me it was 2, and it was like, at the end, you know, it's just, you know, which poem of yours is going to win? And I'm looking at him like, what? Like, are you serious? Wow. So for me now, I think it's just making me really guilty, because I'm not writing. You know, being able to, being validated, and also being looked at and respected by people who you really, really, really admire and respect and look up to. But yeah, other triumphs, can I just say, this is going to be really cheesy, but just connecting, I feel like this is my triumph. Also, because I have a lot of anxiety. Like, I'm someone with a lot of anxiety, and my thing has been being like, for photography, you have to reach out to people, you know, and you have to be like, because how else are you gonna develop your craft if you're not like reaching out and photographing as many people as possible? But I had to, at a certain point, because I have this desire to be alone all the time, and I also have this desire to create, or this impulse to create, and for me it's like, how can these two things coexist? And I was like, you know what, like, I can't let my own anxiety get in the way of my dreams of being an artist, of being a photographer, and so I mean, like, it's just been incredible, just sending messages out to people being like, hey, like, you seem really cool, like, you want to connect, like, you want to meet up here, like, you want to go for tea sometime, things like that. And in return, like, people reaching out to me and being like, I really like what you're doing, like, do you want to, like, you know, talk sometime? And it's just been incredible. I feel like as a triumph for me, it's just like talking to people and being able to just, to connect and just to love people. Yeah, that's probably my triumph.
I mean, I don't think that's cheesy in the least bit. I mean, it makes sense. I know a lot of people that gain a lot of their feel and inspiration from other people and hearing about other people's stories. So, and especially given your talents, it makes sense. So, well, we have to start wrapping up, but I kind of just wanted to ask you two more things. What do you think has been the influence of your heritage or cultural background on your perspective? Like, how does that affect how you view your academic work? How does that affect how you do your creative work? Or even your ability to connect with people? You've kind of alluded to it, but if you could just give a few responses to that.
Yeah, so I mean, I think I've said this already, but I'm Somali. I come from a Somali household. Also, my parents grew up in Kenya. So like a huge part of their identity is being Kenyan. They speak Swahili. They go back to Kenya. I mean, so, and I was also there in Kenya, you know, like this summer. So that was incredible. But for me, it's when I think about the influence that my culture has had, it's really about knowing and realizing that my work is bigger than myself, because you come from a collective, a tribe, a society. It's never really, so even when my parents didn't really get what I was doing in terms of the art that I was creating or what I was doing, or they didn't get the value of what I was doing, there was still the understanding that I was doing it for them as well. You know, whether that was directly going to them and asking for their stories. And I've done this a couple of times where I've sat like next to my mother and I've just asked her like deep questions, and I've gotten away with it because it's like, it's for the art. I have to ask you these things for the art. And recording these things, you know, and taking all these photos and stuff as a way of kind of remembering for later on. I've just had to kind of think about it in terms of I have a responsibility, and I don't think that means a responsibility to kind of show everyone, you know, or lie for people in my family, because I think that's also a thing that you want to do. You want to protect your family even when they do really ugly things. But for me, it's just about, in terms of representation, it's about how can I be as honest as possible. How can I kind of offer the fullest representation, whether that's the good and the bad and everything else, and, you know, in between, how can I do that? But yeah, so I mean, it's about the collectivity. I completely forgot what else you just asked me.
It's okay. It's okay. No, you answered the question. And last, I just kind of wanted to ask, do you have any advice to anyone that's watching and it's like, wow, she's so amazing, how do I get to where she's at? Or they kind of identify with the low self-esteem that you mentioned earlier on, or the anxiety, or being an introvert. Like, what advice do you have for them? I
think just to have, for me, I had to just force myself to share it with a couple people first. So, and then that couple people turns into even more and more people until you get to a stage where you're not scared anymore of sharing your work, you know? But also, I think let love be the center of everything that you're doing. I think let your work flow out of that and not out of like meanness or any hatred or anything. I had to forgive a lot to be able to write about it as fair as possible and to not come out of a place of hatred. To photograph people, you have to respect people as well. Like, you just have to have a respect for all the people you're photographing, all the people you're writing about, filming. Just have a respect for people. Also, don't compromise your vision. Like, do not compromise your vision. I've had like publications and just magazines and other things telling me that they've figured me out as like an artist, or taking certain parts of my identity, whether that's being like a Muslim, a Muslim woman, whether that's being a black woman, whether that's just being like a young Muslim black woman, all these things, and then being like, oh, we have you figured out as an artist. We want you to do this kind of work for us. And you're like, no, you do not have me figured out as an artist. That's not what I'm going to do for you. Like, I'm not going to be your token. And just being like super strong in your vision. Also just knowing that you're always going to be improving. And I think it's good to hold yourself to a standard of, this is the standard I should be working at, but also be kind to yourself. And if you're not producing for a certain amount of time, just take time to live. I think if you just take your time to live, and then the work will follow. Like, don't rush into having to film, having to photograph, having to write. Like, it will come when it needs to come. I just say, like, don't force the work. But yeah, just the most important thing being love. Just let it come out of love. But yeah.
And I mean, I have an add-on. Sorry, that wasn't the last question. I apologize. But how do you respond to someone who doesn't know how to function from a foundation of love, right? Because it seems like you're very welcoming of that angle. You're very embracing of it. But I don't feel like, from my perspective, that that's something that a lot of people know how to do. And I feel like it's a conversation that deserves more than 2 minutes or 3 minutes, however long you're going to take to respond. I feel like it's a weekly, even monthly, yearly process. But how can somebody begin to start functioning from a place of love?
I mean, it took me a super long time. I mean, I just said that, but that took me a long time, because even like saying that, a lot of the work that I do, I'm figuring out what to do with a lot of pain, because there was just a lot of pain that I grew up in, around hearing like stories about abuse, stories about pain, like from direct family members, and being someone that's I just have a lot of empathy. So when I'm close to someone, or when someone's a family member and they're going through pain, I also feel that pain, like, very, very deeply. I think it's what has made my writing better, if I can say that, because I mean, I feel it too. But for the love, it's just been a process for me. It's just been a very, very long process of coming into myself, of being comfortable with myself, of also realizing that I had to forgive. And I think people just take different time, a different time and a different kind of period to heal themselves. And I'm like, still going through that process, but I had to forgive my parents, I had to forgive my uncles for all that they did, I had to forgive my aunties for all that they said, everything, to be able to write about it. And it doesn't mean that I don't still write about my pain, it just means that I don't actually hate them. Like, I don't hate them anymore. They did some crap things, but I don't hate them anymore. And I hope that, like, people reach that level of being able to be like, okay, I can take a step back from it. Like, I just told you, I just came back from Kenya, right? Kenya was like the most to deal with, the most. I had literally made, like, I think the document's like 10 pages of just a list of everything that happened when I was in Kenya. And like, a lot of it was super painful. And so I had to come back and I had to really like distance myself from all those really strong feelings, and I had to just be like, yo, you need to take your time with this. You need to really understand where all these different people are coming from. You need to get into their brain a little bit and see what is making them say all this stuff, what is making them behave in this way, you know? So I mean, empathy, I think, helps me a lot, but also empathy, it breaks me down sometimes too. But I think everybody's so different, and I just wish like everybody so much strength, because it just takes a lot of strength on their own individual journeys.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you going in depth about that. And I feel like if anyone has a further question about that, are they free to contact you?
Yes, they can.
How can they do so? What are your links?
I mean, so I'm basically Amaal Said on mostly everything, like Instagram. I'm Amaal Said on Facebook. No, actually, that's a lie. I'm Amaal 95. I was a child. I'm on 95 on Facebook if you want to add me on Facebook, or you can just search my name. I also have Twitter. I'm Amaal Said on Twitter. I have Instagram. I think I said that. I also have Tumblr, which is Amal's Drifting. Don't ask. As amalsdrifting.tumblr, .tumblr.com. And then also my email. If you want to email me, which is amal95@hotmail.co.uk. You can email me. Also, my website, I shouldn't forget this, amalsaid.com. for my photography work. But yeah, I think that's it. That covers it.
Okay. And I'm sure they'll provide this in the description. But for people that don't watch it directly on YouTube, can you spell Amaal Said?
Yeah, sure thing. It's AMAALSAID. Basically.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me. This is a great conversation.
Thank you.
I'm gonna go back and watch the tea times and learn a few things for myself. So I really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Any closing words that you want to say? Anybody watching, anything like that?
I'm just really glad that we got to connect because it's been a long time coming. But yeah.
Okay, cool. Thank you. And that concludes this installment of Imprint. There we go.